Hey, come check out You Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 ducks. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon. Hey y'all, this is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Hey Google, make the lights red. Just so you have the ambiance or the thought of the ambiance that I might be speaking from or in. I don't even know if this is going to help. Anyways, so this is You're Probably Right podcast. I'm your host, MCM. And today will be a pretty simple podcast. I wanted to go over some stuff. Now, before I go over anything, and this is going to be a quick podcast, I think. Just remember this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. I do not profess to be a professor of anything except a professing Christian. This is not a Christian podcast, but it is a podcast by a Christian, a Bible-believing Christian, a Christian that believes that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, who was born of a virgin, Mary, and he lived a perfect life. He died a substitutionary death on the cross. He rose again on the third day. He is alive right now and at the right hand of the high power, the Father, making intercessions for believers and those who would be believers. So I wanted to get into something, I guess, serious. And it's funny that I'm doing this today. This is actually one day less than a week of the passing of my mother. Some of you might remember the podcast episode I talked about my sister. So it's not that this one is going to be necessarily about the passing of my mother, but I mean, it remains to be seen because I'm just going to be answering some questions. And let me see if I can find where the questions are. It's 10 questions. Now, it shouldn't really take that long to get through, but I'm just going to hopefully keep it simple. I have no promises, guys. I haven't even read these questions. So, I might yammer on a little bit. I can tell you that just so you have some frame of reference of how I'm thinking about this situation as a Christian and as my family members who have passed are Christians for the most part, I believe. But I mean, at the end of the day, who can say? And that's what you're left with. So that'll be the first thing I'll tell you. That's the first thing you're left with, even if you are a believer. You really don't know what the relationship between another individual, maybe family member, loved one, friend, enemy, whatever, between them and God. So you can only hope. You can only remember the experience that you've had with the person, but nobody knows what's inside the heart of a man except for the man in God. So I'm speaking from that, I'll say. And the passings, the four passings that I'm going to concentrate on are my father, brother, sister, mother. I come from a family of 6 people, 4 kids, 2 parents. My parents were married all of my life, living in one home. Might have had disagreements, but never had a knockdown, drag out fight. Never any swear words. No alcohol in the house. No smoking in the house by my parents. My father, who passed away on a cold day in 2005 at the age of 81. The second death was my brother, who passed away in a hospital after he was turned away at the emergency department of a heart attack in 2007 at the age of 44. And that was after a week of me not seeing him. After the last time I saw him, we had an argument, a little bit of a shoving match, matter of fact. Next was my sister in 2022, in June. She died of cancer. And 2 years and 1 day before, 2 years later, I should say, 1 day before, my mother died. And again, this is just this past week. So I guess you can probably figure out the time frame in the year that this podcast is being made in. But at the end of the day, I try to make an evergreen podcast. So to tell you the truth, doesn't really matter when this happened, or should you tune out because it's not happening exactly in the week that you're living in right now? I'd say probably not. And that's especially if you're looking for, just another person's experience. Maybe you're going through this. Maybe you don't know what you would do if you ever had to go through this. But, it's life. So I just wanted to maybe do another podcast in this way, but in a different way at the same time. I do have 1 sibling left, and I have kids and a couple nephews and so on. But, yeah, it's funny, me being the last of the last born of the kids. Here I am again, and we haven't really died in order. Funny enough, my parents both did die at the age of 81, but far apart. My father was substantially older. We were a close family. 3 of my family members died in the exact same room. Obviously, different dates, different years. Yeah. And I'll just answer the questions. I'm going to answer the questions as best I can. Again, I haven't read them, so bear with me if I read them a little bit blah. My reading isn't the greatest, but I'm hoping that, if this podcast helps even one person, I'll be happy. So here I go. First question. How have your personal losses influenced your belief about the afterlife and the existence of a higher power? And I might repeat this a few times, I have a firm belief in God, the God of the Bible, the only wise God, the only knowing God, the living creator of heaven and earth and everything around it and in it. And, when you deal with death, and it happens frequently, even one time, but again, it depends on how close you are with the individuals, maybe, I guess. I have looked to God for strength. I look to God because I know that, yes, one day I will have to meet my Maker. One day this heart will stop on this earth. And what's next? Is it a void like some people believe? Is it like going to sleep and the lights just shut off and that's it? No. I believe what the Bible says. I believe that we will die here. And if you're a believer, you will go to sleep and you'll be in paradise. You'll be in the presence of the Lord. And I believe that if you're not a believer, you go to sleep, but there'll be a judgment, and I think the Bible says you will be in hell. Believers will go to heaven. Those who don't believe, not heaven, hell, for eternal judgment and punishment. So that's my belief. And if you don't believe what I have to say, I would just say the best thing is for you to check out the Bible. Read the Bible. Visit a Bible-believing church. I would say not a rock and roll, mood music, R&B or reggae fest church, but a simple Bible-believing church, a church that preaches the gospel. Not to get you happy, not for women to laugh at men, not for men to disrespect women, but a Bible-believing church that teaches and preaches the gospel. Number 2, what spiritual insights or changes in beliefs have you experienced through the process of mourning your loved ones? Spiritual insights, changing beliefs. Well, nothing's really changed. If anything, there's more of a steadfast belief in what I've professed to believe before. But I have since each, and there's been a little space between each, obviously. There's been 2 years between the first two, and then a big gap, and then a death, and then 2 years between the last two. I just realized more and more the importance of family and the less importance of material things. Now, along with the deaths that I'm, thinking of when I answer these questions, I also can extrapolate that to the other deaths that I've experienced, the other funerals that I've gone to, the other situations that I've been around, or the people that I've had to support in various deaths, including a couple aunts, in-law, some others. And, funny enough, I was thinking today, and I'm just trying to keep this as human, as real as possible for people to understand. There was this plate that I was using on Monday, the day of my mother's death. And I noticed that I got the plate so hot that I felt it like it was sizzling, like it was cracking or something. Nevertheless, everything stayed still together, so I ate off this plate. Washed it, used it a couple times this week, And then today, I was in the kitchen with my son, and I'm washing the plates again, and I'm hearing it crackling, and I'm like, man, I don't trust this thing. I'm gonna put some nice food on it one day, and it's gonna crack in the microwave or something when I'm heating something up. This plate was never meant for the microwave in the first place. It's also not a good place for you to heat up food, in reality. But I noticed the plate that I was using was a plate that I had bought from a set from a store called Zeller's that used to exist in Canada. And I think they brought it back and they put it right in the middle of the Hudson's Bay Company stores, which it was owned by at the time. But this is like 10 years after they closed it. And anyhow, the plate set that I'd bought was these nice white plates with about an 1.5 inch rim right around it in red. And at the very tip of it was 14 karat gold plated. Just a beautiful, simple plate. And the point of me bringing up the plate is that I had bought this plate, this nice, huge plate set for my mother at Christmas over 10 years ago. And one thing always ticked me off at, my family's home, and I was living away in my own home with my family, is that kids, my kids, my older kids, my nephews, whoever around the family decided to start using these plates all willy-nilly. And these were supposed to be the good plates. And, if you come from a family who have the good plates, the good china, this was the set that I had bought to replace the other set that was here. But of course, the same thing had happened. People don't respect things that you buy for other people. They're not theirs. They're like, whatever. And my mother was never too keen on people using them. But, at the end of the day, they were used. Not only were they used, but they were used well and often. And those plates are still here. As a matter of fact, the one that I was using that I talked about earlier, I actually wiggled it around, and I called my son. And I told him a little bit of the story, and I pulled it, and it literally pulled the plate, and then I punched it in the middle, and it cracked in half, kind of. A perfect crack, because it was a crack already happening, but for some reason it needed a little help to separate itself. And then I told him that, what the plate was from and where it was from. And, I'm saying all that to say this, that it affirms the idea that you can't take it with you. No matter how beautiful something is, no matter how poignant a statement you try to make by giving something to someone to let them know you value them and you want to give them this great gift, the chances of you leaving whatever it is that you're looking at right now when you pass away, unless you destroy it first, the chances of you leaving it here and it being here after you are gone are very good. You can't take it with you. So care for one another. Bless others with things, with your time. Don't value things so much so that you need to hoard everything onto yourself, because, you literally can't take it with you. And it just affirms the belief in me that I am looking for heaven. And it might sound morbid to some people, but the reality is one day I'm just not going to be here. One day you're not going to be here either. So make this time count. Do what you can for the Lord. Do what you can for other people. Don't be selfish. Next question. Considering the legacies left behind by those you've lost, What spiritual values do you think are the most important to impart to others? Just a strong belief in God. And it's funny, you look at life and you wonder what it's going to be like when your parents are gone. And then they're gone. And you're still here. You're left with memories. And if you're a believer, you hold on, you clutch on to what your belief is in God even more. If you are a true believer. If you're not a true believer, maybe you curse God. Maybe you get angry at God. Maybe you say, God, I'm not talking to you anymore. God, I'm not going to go to church anymore. God, I'm not going to be a believer anymore. God, I'm not going to watch my language, my behaviors. I'm just going to do whatever it is I feel because life isn't fair and all those other things. But for me, no. And I was blessed with the type of passings my family had. I wasn't there when my brother passed, and we had an argument a week before he passed. We weren't too happy with each other, but we were kind of fine after everything, and it was funny. It was kind of a funny situation at the end of our little squabble. With the others, the other three, my sister, my mother, my father, they all passed away in bed. But the legacies of good people, and I don't believe any is good. I believe we're all wicked. We're all shaped and born in iniquity, and we strive to be better. We strive to be perfect. We strive to be more godly, as believers, as we get older. And I definitely saw that in my family members for the most part. And it left a good example for me. Their legacy is that they were giving, they were hardworking, they were humble, they were loving, they were nice. So I realized that their behaviors, their demeanors, their character was very important. And besides things, you leave a legacy of those behaviors, those words, those actions, those givings. Those are the things that you really leave behind with people. Next question. In moments of deep sorrow, have you found any particular spiritual practices or beliefs that provide you comfort or strength? Not practices. I try to make sure that I pray every day. I try to think from a godly perspective, I can't say from heaven's eyes because I'm not in heaven, but I believe that the Almighty God that was in Christ Jesus as he walked on this earth and who he is now in heaven, I believe that God is in me and I believe that I am in him, and therefore my belief is never waning. I just look at it and see sometimes I look at my life and I say, man, how have I failed God today? Couldn't I be better? Couldn't my behaviors have been better? Couldn't my words have been better? My actions, So if anything, I beat up myself on bad behavior. I really don't like, I would like to be better. I'd like to be more loving, more giving, more patient. more meek, more humble. Things don't matter when you really, really come down to it. So I try to pray. I don't pray for things really. I mean, I maybe pray for situations, maybe relationships to be, a little bit better or in that. But I'm not like here, Lord, can I have a car? Lord, can you send somebody to pay off my bills? No, it's nothing like that. I realize that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I believe that God is sovereign. So I trust him. And who am I not to trust him? And that helps me to keep my head up. That's what keeps me looking forward. Is knowing that God is in control. It is appointed unto a man once to die and then the judgment. Let's see. I like to keep this one short, but I'm already at 24 minutes. So I don't know if I'm going to go through all the questions, but here we go. What's the next one? I guess, let's see. Okay. Do the dates in which your loved ones passed hold a spiritual significance for you? And how do you honor their memories in a way that reflects this? Well, no, the dates don't really mean much. I just remember them. I remember the time of year, the weather, what I was doing when I heard, what I had to do. Like, for instance, I had to perform CPR on 2 of them. The faces, the blank looks of someone passing away. It's not creepy, not scary at all. Just, you just remember. So, significance of dates? No, not really. I tend to remember as the death dates, like a birth date comes around, especially for the first couple years. But you realize, what it is. It's a part of life, especially when you've lived a life. As both my parents lived to 81. Like, how much longer did you want them to live? One was living with dementia or aphasia, and the other one was living with Parkinson's. So quality of life at that time wasn't very good anyways. Of course, you still miss your parent. And I had long enough time with both those parents where their conditions deteriorated so much that they were like a shell, as they say, of their former self. And I believe that was God being merciful to me. I haven't as yet experienced any tragic deaths. Well, I mean, my sister and my brother were substantially younger than my parents. My mother outlived 2 of my siblings. But I had a lot of time with my sister. My brother was kind of off doing his own thing. He's always in his own world anyways. So I thank God for my experience with death, because it could be a lot worse. They all could have been a lot worse. And it's just my belief in God, in his word, that keeps me okay with everything. And even if you're not okay, what are you going to do, right? But at least he gives me that peace. But thank God for that. How has facing death of close members affected, or family members, affected your daily spiritual practice or your praxis on life's purpose. Again, I guess I have to just keep repeating myself. Questions are pretty close. It hasn't really, It's just that you look at it and you realize that those you have close, and, if anything you want to try to say to other people, younger people, kids, that really value your family. Really value the time you spend with other people and what you can do for other people. Because you only have a certain amount of time to do those things. There's no time to be selfish. There's no time to be hoarding everything for yourself. Give some things away, because at the end of the day, nobody really owns anything. But there's many people who have need to use something that you have. And sometimes you have it just sitting in your closet. I was saying to somebody one time about shoes. Like I was a guy who's had a lot of shoes, and I still have a few. And it's like, first of all, you can only wear one at a time. And there's many people out there without shoes. And can you imagine you have shoes in a closet and there's people running around bare feet, not by choice? How do you feel about that? So, yeah. What role do you think spiritual growth plays in coping with understanding grief? Well, not just spiritual growth. Growing in the love of the Lord. Growing as a Christian, as a believer. And realizing, the reality of life. And realizing that at the end, you're either going to heaven or hell. And searching out what this means for an individual is very important. What you believe is very important. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father but by me, he said. So I take it as truth. I believe it is true. All other belief systems are doctrines of devils and get you nowhere but hell. That's the reality. It's not a threat. It's not a diss. It's just the truth. I try to spread the gospel where I can find place in a conversation. I try to stand up as a believer and say what I need to say what comes to my mind. Because, in reality, if you knew somebody and they're about to fall into a hole and die, wouldn't you tell them to watch out? Well, that's what I believe. So that's what I try to do. And many people are not very receptive. But as I said before, as a conversation makes room for it, I try to make room for it and say something. How do you reconcile the human fear of death with spiritual teachings about the afterlife? Well, if you don't believe in anything, you should be fearful, because you should be fearing what's going to happen after, especially those who've been told time and time again, those who've been in church time and time again, and you don't believe. I fear for people like you and those of you who believe, well, the afterlife will be wonderful and we'll be getting life. It's not after, it's just life. As the destruction of this mortal body, then life will begin. Anyhow, guys, I'm just going to leave it there. A little short one. I could answer a couple more questions, but I'd rather just kind of leave it right there. That's how I feel about it today. Anyhow, signing off. This is You're Probably Right, and this is MCM. Love someone. Do for someone. Give to someone. Share with someone. Look after someone. Forgive someone. Bless someone. Teach someone. Speak to someone. That's about it, yo. Take care. Good day, good afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM, and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today, we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned.